Welcome back to the Commanders Declassified podcast.
You just muted yourself. We're off to a bad start, Ellie. Take yourself off mute. Welcome to the Commanders Declassified podcast. Ellie has never worked a computer before, so I am Eric. We're gonna be doing things right tonight. I'm gonna turn it back over to Ellie now. He seems like he figured out his microphone.
I'm computer literate, I promise you. Yes, my bad. So look, the draft happened, and so did my microphone. But I tell you what, watching the draft, it was insane because what dominated the draft was Shedeur Sanders, start to finish. And while I was hoping he got drafted, I got a little bit annoyed that was the only thing the draft was about the entire time was the Shedeur Sanders watch. But I always enjoy the event of the draft, and they had a great turnout in Green Bay, by the way. Which, how the heck are you just standing in the middle of a street with 200,000 people around you for 3 hours? I don't know. Like, how do you go to the bathroom in that scenario? And if you do you lose your spots, or is it like ticket you buy to stand in a certain place?
Couldn't have been me.
Yeah, I can't do it. All right, fellas. So we actually were talking about this before we went live on air. Give me your worst Redskins / Commanders draft memory. Eric, I'm going to start with you.
There's so many of them. The worst draft. I don't know. I'm going to say Andre Johnson, not that one, in 1996. I believe he was the 28th pick in the draft, and this man never even dressed for a game. This dude never suited up for a game. He was an offensive tackle out of Penn State and never even made it to an active roster. Like, that's got to be, and that's a Charlie Casserly pick. And everybody's, people have very fond memories of Charlie Casserly, much fonder than I do, because I don't think I didn't like him much as a GM after kind of Bobby Beathard's players rode off into the sunset. I think, he was the architect of those bad 90s teams, Charlie Casserly. But picking a guy who, in the first round, who never suited up for a game has got to be the bottom of the barrel for me.
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. Mike, what about you? What's your lowest moment?
It didn't. In hindsight, this is hindsight being 2020 as far as worst draft memory. Or maybe we did know at the time it happened, but didn't realize how bad it actually could get. But I remember in 2005, Washington, they had a first-round pick, and they picked 9th in the draft, and they drafted Carlos Rogers. I could be off a couple of picks, but I think it was the 9th pick in the 2005 draft. They drafted Carlos Rogers. They traded back into the draft and in the first round with the Broncos. And everybody and their mother was expecting them to draft Aaron Rodgers with the 25th pick, I think. It was 25th or 26th pick. I can't remember. Everybody thought that they were going to draft Aaron Rodgers. But to everyone's surprise, the Packers decided to draft them the pick before. And I just can't help to think, what if Joe Gibbs' last 2 years or 3 years in the league, what if he had Aaron Rodgers instead of Jason Campbell? It's the biggest what if ever.
Aaron Rodgers would have been sitting on the bench behind Todd Collins is what would have happened, because that's what Joe Gibbs did with young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'm dropping hard truths tonight, peeps. Joe Gibbs did not mess. I mean, I love Joe Gibbs as much as anybody, but that dude had no tolerance for a young quarterback. So, yeah, Aaron Rodgers would have basically sat on the bench just like he did in Green Bay.
Because in 2007, he did ride with Campbell.
But when Campbell got healthy, who did he roll with? Todd Collins. Campbell got hurt. They put Collins in, and Campbell never saw the field again that year because he wasn't going to go into the playoffs with a young quarterback. That was just how Gibbs rolled. And credit to him, he won 3 Super Bowls like that.
They did win 4 straight with Collins to end the year that year. So.
And he just wasn't gonna. He didn't mess with young quarterbacks. So I would have loved to have seen Aaron Rodgers, my cousin, in a uniform, but he would have sat on the bench just like he did in Green Bay until Joe Gibbs left. So just is what it is.
I was at that game when Jason Campbell got benched for Todd Collins against the Chiefs at home. I think it was, I can't remember whatever year that was. I remember that stadium was so loud. they were booing the crap out of Jason Campbell. They turned on him quickly in that stadium. I remember being there, and everybody was like flipping off Dan Snyder. And I think Todd Collins, they brought them back that game or close to it when he came in against the Chiefs. I have to look it up. And there was no going back at that point. I remember being there. That was a fun one. For me, I'm gonna go way back to when I was a little kid, and it was the Heath Schuler year. And I like everybody, like I got this paper called the Freelance Star. My mother got it, I should say, and I read it. And I remember like they were really like experts were like, don't get Heath Schuler. He's got a lot of flaws in his game. And then I was like, well, we shouldn't get Heath Schuler. And we got him. And who was the other quarterback that year with Heath Schuler? It was Trent Dilfer, right? Okay.
Yep.
So either way, you weren't going to hit the lottery one way or another with those picks. But I was like, man, we shouldn't get Heath Schuler. And then like you found out very quickly that Heath Schuler was like not good, right? And then we also got Gus Frerotte that year. And Gus Frerotte was like an instant favorite of mine. You know Gus Frerotte, Eric, right? That's your boy.
Yeah, it's my. I've got that picture of me. I look like his mini me, standing next to him at a photo op. It's embarrassing, like looking at it. We'll have to post it again, I guess. But yeah. Heath Schuler was the first guy, the first quarterback where like hand size was like a big thing with him because he had like tiny hands, and people were concerned about that. He had the little baby Kenny Pickett doll hands, and it was the same thing. Like he just and he had trouble throwing an NFL ball. He had trouble holding on to it. So yeah, that was that's the first time I remember anybody talking about a hand size for a quarterback. That was a big deal with him.
Yeah. Hey, thinking about the Shador thing, do you guys remember a scenario similar to that where somebody who was thought to be I know we talked about Aaron Rodgers, but he still went in the first round, but somebody who was thought to be a sure thing first pick or first round pick, let alone maybe a top 10 pick? Do you remember somebody like that just didn't go anywhere close to that?
It just happened a couple of years ago. It seemed like everyone forgot about it. But Sam freaking Howell.
I'm not buying that.
The year before he came out, he was a projected top 5 pick.
Yeah, he was a top.
It was the same. It was the same, literally the same exact story as Shador Sanders. Like all the way down to losing talent and having people make excuses for him why he didn't perform. Like it was the exact same thing. Howell was a projected top 5 pick.
The only thing I'm gonna argue with you about that is Shador was still projected to be a top pick at the pro day, right? Sam Howell, through Sam Howell's senior year, you started to see him not be a first round pick anymore. Not senior, his last year. I don't know if it was a senior year. I never followed Sam Howell closely, but you started. He wasn't in the top 7 quarterback board, and that was a terrible draft. But there's a lot of parallels in that draft and this draft because that draft was an awful draft, right? Didn't Malik Willis go? Yeah. Malik Willis was one of the first ones to go. Who else was it?
Kenny Pickett was the first one off the board. Malik Willis.
That's the Justin Fields draft, isn't it?
That was no, because there was no Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback off the board. It was Kenny Pickett. Really? It was Desmond. Desmond Ridder was like a 3rd round pick.
Yep.
Malik Will. Yeah, it was a bottom of the barrel quarterback draft for sure that year. Our boy Howell just got traded, by the way, over the weekend. Did you guys see that? He went to Minnesota.
Yep.
For a bag of Fritos. I still wish him the best. I think, I don't know if he's ever going to turn out. I don't know if he was ever going to turn out, but Eric Bieniemy did that dude no favors.
He got David Card in the second year.
He really did. They really did not do him any favors. I mean, that's got to be tough on a quarterback. So good luck. Good luck, Sam Howell. Good luck, Shador Sanders.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of narrative around that. The one thing that almost seemed to me like the owner of the Browns made that pick because did you see the look on the GM and the coach's face after they drafted him? They looked like they were going in for a root canal after they picked him. They were like,
I believe you.
Did you see the tweet you said the tweet from the president, right? He's like, this is unacceptable. Shador Sanders be on a team. Somebody's got to pick this man. We're calling the league.
Why did they draft him when they had 4 quarterbacks on the roster?
Yeah, they had just taken a quarterback one pick before, like one round before. That they like I that's got to be like a Dan Snyder special right there. It seems like it anyway.
It is.
Good luck to Shador. I don't think he's as bad as his draft position. He's got a lot of flaws in his game that he's got to work on. I don't think he's like a top of the line NFL starter, but I don't know. I think he's probably better than some of the guys that went ahead of him. I don't know what happened, if the interview stuff is true or not, but I don't know if he walked into an interview like his dad walked into interviews back in the day. I can see why nobody would want to take him. Because like they'll put up with that if you got Deion Sanders talent, but if you got Shedeur Sanders talent, nobody's going to put up with that. But I don't know if it's true or not. Like that could just be smear campaign. Who knows? Just go. I wish Shedeur the best. I don't root against him at all. It was it was really irritating. And Mel Kiper had to be on Deion Sanders' payroll for as much as he was crying. Like there's no way he didn't have something to gain by.
He was literally whining at one point.
It was terrible.
Like he was whining. I don't say that hyperbole. Like he was whining.
Well, I would say this: like, I get it, but if you're the Steelers, what are you doing? Like, there's a quarterback you can at least take a chance on and see what it is. What? Why are you just like continuously just picking players at positions you already have and not at least taking a risk?
I blame the Saints and the Steelers for all of this. Those are the two teams that the Saints, especially, because the quarterback that they drafted in the second round, I'm like, I mean, I guess, but is he?
I put it more. I got more hate for the Steelers for that because the Saints have so much other stuff they got to worry about, whereas like the Steelers really just need a quarterback. But the Saints, like they've got a million holes to fill. So take the best player you can take if you're them. And that Sloth kid or whatever his name was, I don't know what's going on with that. Shook, yeah, I don't know. He's about to be shook out of the league in about a year and a half.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
I think the better comparison to my question is Malik Willis. Remember, Malik Willis was going to be the first quarterback taken going into that draft. You guys remember that?
No. The only person saying that was Ellie on our podcast. That's the only person that was jockeying.
1,000% never heard that. Out of Liberty, are you crazy?
No.
Hey, I'll send you some mock drafts from Mel Kiper after this podcast. Anyway.
Yeah, Mel Kiper. So Mr. I'll retire. Jimmy Clausen isn't a star in this league. Mel Kiper. Lamar Jackson should switch to wide receiver. Yeah, he's one to be trusted.
Right.
Now, you know one that you don't think about, and this is even kind of, I was little when this happened, but Dan Marino is that guy. Dan Marino there were some character concerns allegedly with him, and he dropped all the way to 28, which, obviously not as far as Shedeur, but I mean, that's a long way to drop for somebody.
That was the Elway
behind. Yeah, that was Elway, which Elway was going to be number one overall, but then you had guys like Ken O'Brien, who was a good quarterback in the league, but he wasn't obviously Dan Marino, and then you had like Tony Eason, who was okay, got hurt a lot, but he was fine. But again, he wasn't Dan Marino. So there was that, and then Blackledge, I think was the other one. So there was, that was a kind of a big deal back in the day. But yeah, nothing. You got to go pretty far back to see something like you saw last weekend for sure.
Let's show. All right, let's get into the Commanders picks. NFL.com gave us an A. So they going through the picks and how they sort of assessed them. They said that our first round tackle they gave us a B on that move because they said that he was a second round pick. He should have been picked in the first round. Josh Connerly, the tackle out of Oregon. Did you love the pick, Eric, when they made the pick for the tackle, especially the tackle that they ended up picking?
I was thinking it would be Josh Simmons, just because that's who we've been talking about this whole off season. I've been saying, like, if he's there, you got to take him. But if the profile that Cliff Kingsbury likes in an offensive lineman seems to be Josh Connerly, much more mobile, fluid, athletic, maybe not as strong as like an anchor type player. So it's almost like a Shanahan pick, like offensive lineman type pick. Those guys that are really good in space, that can get out and block screens, get out in the open field and make blocks, and they're nice and fast. So it makes sense now when you think about it from that perspective. And I didn't hate the pick at all. I know there was a lot of crying about not taking an edge rusher or whatever there because everybody else is getting edge rushers. Well, guess what? Everybody else is getting edge rushers because of our quarterback. So we should probably think about protecting our quarterback from all those edge rushers. And I think they did a great job. I mean, I love the fact that they went offensive tackle at 34 because, now that with him and Tunsil, like really, you think about like day one next year, we're talking about potentially 4 different positions are now affected on that offensive line, because now you can, you've got Tunsil over on the left, which frees up Coleman to maybe go to the right or go to guard or Goldman or Connolly can play guard, which then puts Allegretti on the bench as depth. You can slide Wiley over into guard where he's better at until Sam Cosmi's healthy. So you've really, really done a lot of good work for your offensive line. So I love the pick. Little surprised it was Connerly, but like in hindsight, it makes sense that that's the kind of player he was.
Yeah. I like to move. You guys talked me into going tackle early on. A couple mock drafts ago that we did it. I was not going to be on board with that if we didn't do those mock drafts. I didn't care specifically about who it was. I'd never heard of Connerly before, to be honest with you. I didn't come across him and do any of our mocks or research or anything like that, but he looks like he's going to be a player. He looks like he's going to take a couple years to really develop into the level they think he can play at, but that's okay, right? Because Jaden's still developing too, as long as he can do enough. And they said Tunsil's obviously the left tackle, so Connerly will not be playing left tackle for anybody who was wondering. All right, Mike, second round they went and got go ahead, Mike, what do you got?
Oh, real quick about Connerly, because you said something and it made me think about when we drafted Coleman last year, and everyone was saying similar things, like he may need some time to develop. He had a pretty decent year at left tackle, so maybe they got something cooking. Maybe Bobby Johnson might suck as an offensive coordinator, but as an offensive line coach, he's the guru or whatever. I don't know. But I'm going to continue what you were about to ask about the second round pick, Trey Amos. I didn't think he was going to be there at 61. It was a corner that I looked at and I was like, oh, this is a good corner, but I'd rather get a tackle or a playmaker at 29 than a cornerback, because I felt like we were good at cornerback. So to shore up the offensive line, like you said, one pick fixes like 3 positions. Like, it's an amazing pick value-wise and talent-wise. So to do that and still get a first-round quality corner in 61, phenomenal move and lucky. Like, let me keep it real. It was luck. Like, Amos should not have been there at pick 61 with the way his highlight looks, with his size, with his skills, the fact that he's able to go from one school to another 2 times and still produce. Like a phenomenal pick that I'm way, way high on. Probably too high, but it's better than St. Juice and Forbes. So, hey.
Yeah, I think.
Man,
go ahead, Eric.
I was going to say, there's one guy in that draft that looks like an NFL quarterback. It is Trey Amos. Look at him. He checks every box, like just physically. Like, that guy could stand up straight and scratch his kneecaps. His arms are so long. He's crazy. Like, which isn't, it's, he's just like, just hand size arms, just everything. He looks like an NFL quarterback, a corner that can lock guys down. So yeah, and I did not think he was going to be there either. I thought he was like a first round, maybe early second round pick too. So the fact that they got him there makes me even more happy that they took Connerly where they did, because you were able to still, take him and still get a really good corner. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I got nothing but praise for that pick, and I saw this on social media. But to go from Benjamin St. Juice and Emmanuel Forbes to what we think Trey Amos is going to be, along with our boy Sanders Drill, and then we're gonna hold out hope for Lattimore. I'm gonna give him another chance here. We're gonna be all right.
If Amos's floor is St. Juice, which I feel like if he should be able to come in and play just as well as St. Juice played, because it's not that St. Juice is a bad player or anything. He was decent. He just sucked at locating the ball. Like, he had no feel for the game. Completely opposite with Trey Amos. If the ball is around him, it's either getting swatted or caught. He led the SEC. I'm not say the nation because I can't confirm it, but I know he led the SEC with 16 pass deflections. 16 pass deflections. Think about that.
Yeah, I like it. I'm excited. All right, so then they switched it up, and then in round 4, pick 128, They went wide receiver Jalen Lane. And this is where the draft started to get weird for me. And weird in the sense that it wasn't what I was expecting them to do, considering the needs on the board. So, like, we hadn't addressed edge rusher, we hadn't addressed running back, we hadn't addressed a couple other positions. And I was like, man, I was cool with getting a wide receiver, but this wide receiver kind of shocked me a little bit because he's out of Virginia Tech, which is fine, but he just isn't a really well polished player, right? And so I was like, man, fourth round, we just did this last year with McCaffrey, right? We got a guy that really wasn't polished at the position, that he felt like maybe we could have done some other things. And McCaffrey, as a rookie, didn't pan out the way we wanted him to. He had some potential. So during the draft and a little bit after the draft, I was like, I don't know. And then I woke up on Sunday and I started watching a little bit of like the highlights on him, and I know it's a highlight film. And what I saw was it confirmed what I thought already, was that this guy's still not a refined wide receiver. But man, when he gets the ball in his hands, that dude turns into a dynamic running back with the ball in his hands. It's nuts. Like he gets blown up by a defender, maintains his balance and keeps running. He's running through two tacklers. The guy runs like his hair is on fire. And I just love that, right? I just love that. The key is Kingsbury's got to scheme up ways to get the ball in his hands, because he's not going to be a receiver that beats you off of route technique. And that matters in the NFL big time. So where they put him and how they move him around and the motions and things like that are going to be critical to him having any success. And that's Jalen Lane. I don't think I've said his name to this point, Jalen Lane. And I think that's going to be really critical for him. It's going to be make or break. What Cliff Kingsbury does with him to get the ball in his hands is going to be the number one element to him being successful in this league early on. And then he can work on the rest, because he does need to work on the rest. But man, if you get a chance, go watch this guy once he gets the ball in his hands. And last thing I'll say is, as a returner, I saw this man catch the ball in between 7 different defenders, break out of there like he was playing Monopoly and got a get out of jail free card, and then house the ball. That guy is a courageous punt returner. And holy crap, am I excited about having a punt returner who can take it to the house for real. That's my perspective on Jalen Lane. Fellas, tell me what you thought about it.
At the very least, punt returner, kick returner. Like, that's probably why they drafted them, or what they plan on using them for this year. But similar to you, I had the same realization. I watched some highlights on Saturday after the pick, and I was like, oh, he's kind of fast, like quick, whatever. He got a little wiggle to him. You said it doesn't matter that he was drafted from Virginia Tech. To me, it does. It just seemed like you don't get that many dynamic playmakers from Virginia Tech, with a huge asterisk, by the way. I know, Vic, I know. But usually, like, outside of that, you just get like tough players or whatever. But he is kind of tough. Talking about Lane. And like I said, the realization I had looking at videos from Saturday compared to Monday, I had to double check to make sure that the person's videos that I were looking at didn't speed the videos up. So I had to look at multiple videos, but he was much faster than I initially thought. Same with the other playmaker we drafted, we'll talk about later. But I like to pick the names that I heard throwing out as far as comps were Crowder and Santana Moss, and Debo was the third person. So if you're getting those 3 types of comps, and honestly, that's 3 different players if you think about it, it's a pretty solid foundation for a 4th-round receiver.
Well, we're going to go ahead and toss the Santana Moss and the Crowder ones out the window, because both of those guys were dynamic route runners coming out of school. But Debo had a lot to be desired when it came to route. So we could talk about that one. Eric, you got something to say?
Yeah, I don't think his route running is as bad as maybe it's being made out to be. He definitely has to clean some stuff up, but he's not a Debo Samuels level route runner. He knows how to get in and out of breaks. He's just not clean doing it. But there's a couple of routes where he ran those little like inside out guys. I can't remember the whip routes. Ran those really effectively, and with his speed, he was able to get good separation, even if his technique wasn't perfect. You're going to have to clean that up in the NFL for sure. But I'll give you another comp that you guys may not like, but I'm meaning it as a compliment coming out of college. It's kind of what we thought this guy might be, and this guy has the same potential. And that's Antonio Gibson. Like, that's the kind of player that you're looking. Now, he's not as small, he's not as big as Gibson was, but the way that he was used in college and the potential he has as a returner, and he's got big hands, unlike Antonio Gibson. that's the comp. Like that's the kind of player that you can use. It's a guy. It's in that Debo like role, but gives you a little bit something different than what Debo does. And in the 4th round, again, edge rusher might have been there, but do you want a 4th round edge rusher who's going to be a rotational piece, or do you want a guy who's crazy athletic that could potentially be an impact player, even if it's just as a punt returner? He's a guy that can change a game day one just because of his athleticism. It's the kind of guy that I like adding. I'm not a big fan of adding a guy like that who is like all potential and doesn't have the production. I don't like those guys in round 1, round 2, those day 3 picks that are guys like that. I love those guys, and he's one of those who has a really, really high ceiling as an NFL player. It's up to him to do it, but I think he can. He's got that potential, and I love the pick.
Yeah.
Start sounding like a homer, by the way.
That Antonio Gibson comp is actually like spot on, especially in that game. I found out that Virginia Tech gives out the number 25 to the special teams player of the week. So if you were watching highlights of Lane and you saw him randomly win 25 one week, it was because he earned that. And in that game, he looked like a running back. And on some of those returns or outside plays or whatever, he did remind me of Gibson. So that is a great comp for real. I don't hate you for it.
Nope. Eric, I got to ask you about this one.
The white guy. See how it is.
Cade Madrano, linebacker out of UCLA. This one caught me way off guard. Tell us why he makes sense, man, and why you like him so much, because you were pumped about this pick.
Pumped might be a little bit of a strong of a term. I'm fine with the pick. I'm okay with it. You've got a guy, again, he gives you something a little bit different on defense. It's just something that you don't have, and that's a guy at the linebacker spot who can cover and who can play in space, who can cover, be it zone or man coverage, who can match up with the tight end and hold his own. That's what the hope is, and that's what he did in college. Very good at taking the ball away. You saw some highlights of him using the peanut punch really effectively. A lot of picks. Does a really good job in space. I believe he was the fastest linebacker at the combine. Certainly never going to be an every down player probably because he weighs 220 pounds, and it doesn't seem like, from what folks are saying, he really has the potential to get a whole lot bigger. So again, you're looking at a guy who's probably going to be a core special teams player and maybe that dime linebacker type player that can come in and just cover the tight end on 3rd down. Again, if you're getting that in the 6th round, somebody who can be good at those things, then I think that's a good pick.
Yeah. You definitely don't want him in on running downs. That guy.
Yeah, he's not subbing for Bobby Wagner anytime soon.
When I first watched them, I'm like, why is these tackles are soft? Like, it's not like they weren't. He was getting them to the ground, but I'm like, what is this for a linebacker? And then I see that he's a converted.
Like Dick Butkus. Yeah.
Right. And then I see converted wide receiver, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then I'm thinking, when was the last time a receiver went to linebacker?
It's kind of wild.
Like, that's crazy. Yeah. But you do see it in this tape, though. I'll source him. Logan Paulson. He was high on him. He might have been a little biased because he's from UCLA, but he had him in the top 100. And it's not like Logan Paulson is one of those people that gas a player up just to gas him up or whatever. So if he had him in the top 100 and Washington gets him in the 200 pick or something crazy like that,
205, yep.
205, yeah. So that alone perks my antenna. Like, man, that's interesting. And I ain't gonna lie, like, among the fans, that's one of the most liked picks, maybe the most liked picks. Once you watch him, you think about what he can become, and you like, oh, that's a 6th round person, but there's a person in the 7th round that might be more valuable than him.
Did you say he had him in the top 100 players?
That's what he again, just like Madrano said that his specialty was covering tight ends. Just like Madrano said that Paulson said that he had Madrano in his top 100. These are not coming from Mike. I did not say this. You know me. I'm going to stand on what I said. They said that. I did not.
Okay, no way. But I like the pick now. I mean, if he playing the role that we're talking about, If they try to use him any more than that, I got questions. Because like you said, those tackles was like he come flying in there and he's like, it's like a Care Bear as soon as he gets
It's
there.
very much
How
like
you get a layup tackle? What is that?
it was like Pop Warner tackles, like 7 and 8-year-old. Like it did look like that. There were some, but turning the ball over, he came in with that peanut punch hard though, several
He
times.
does turn the ball over. I love to see that for sure. All right, Mike, our last pick of the draft. We finally got our running back in the draft, which everybody was clamoring for. They said, "Here you go. You're gonna like it." His name is Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt out of his college and university, which I forgot what it is. But what do you think about him, man? He kind of looks like a baller.
So we most know like he started at New Mexico State and transferred to Arizona, but only ended up playing one game last year because of some nonsense with eligibility. ESPN said that he played 8 games in 2022, I think, in New Mexico, but he only played 4 as a freshman. It was another player that had the same number that played those games, and somehow that was the reason that led to him being ineligible. I like the pick. Honestly, it looked like to me Washington implemented a strategy that a lot of us implement in our fantasy drafts. We know no one's thinking about this person. So we can do whatever we want with our first 4 picks because we know we can get this person with our last pick because nobody's thinking about them. That's what it feels like because I'm not gonna lie, Caleb Johnson was there in the second round. Samson was there in the third round, I think. Like, it was running backs available that we talked about that Washington could have drafted, but thankfully, I guess, they went with different positions because, bro, looking at what is Ja'Cory Crosley, whatever his name is, call him Bill. They said he looked like Little Bill when he was little, and that's where the name came from, so call him Bill. That, again, that's what he said. I did not say that. He said it. I'm not gonna lie, he is dynamic. Like I said earlier, when I watched his film and watched it the second time, he looked much faster. I said he was maybe a little bit faster than Brian Robertson. No, he's a lot a bit faster than Brian Robertson, man. That man has them wheels. He seems like he has the attitude, but I'll end it with this. Remember, I told you he only played 1 game last year. He still ended up playing in the East-West Shrine game. 11 carries, 97 yards, I think, and a touchdown. Player of the game. Everybody is playing for their careers, trying to get good film on, and you just got this running back who only played 1 game last year, crush everybody. And somehow he still lasted to the 7th round, but I'll take it. I think that pick may be just as lucky as the Amos pick, real talk.
He was the 31st ranked running back coming into the draft. 31st. And I'm talking about like, RJ Harvey and, guys like that. Like when you look at this, you ever heard of Corey Kinner, Marcus Yarms? Like these are people, Paul Maffa, Kyle Monagai. These are people that went ahead of him or was in his area or tier of getting drafted. These are guys we've never talked about. And this guy was out there, but they saw something they liked. They saw the potential. He had a top 30 visit with the Commanders, I believe, as well. Being the 30th ranked running back, he had a top 30 visit. Think about that. Like, that's insane.
I'm telling you, they knew something. It was something that they knew that other teams didn't know because, like I said, it was a need. Like, it's not like they came into the draft not wanting a dynamic running back. So the fact that they were able to find this particular running back with their last draft pick, like I said, I just feel like they knew something or they know something that the rest of the league didn't know, it feels like. Or maybe the rest of the league knew and didn't care or didn't want them as much as Washington did. Who knows? But I'm thrilled either way. I love every single pick.
Yeah, the one thing about him is if he can, which he hasn't really shown, he only had 7 catches, I think, in college. If he can catch out of the backfield, which they may have just, that might not have been part of their offense, or maybe they had somebody else that was really good at it. If he can catch, because this is a dude that averaged like 10 yards a carry and 9 yards a carry his 2 years. I mean, he's insane. Like his numbers at New Mexico and Arizona are nuts for like just such. It is a small sample size, but I mean his numbers are just insane. And he was a PFF had him. He was a 92 PFF grade the year that he played the full season. I mean, so there may very well be something there with this guy. Again, he has to show that he can do it at an NFL level. I did watch quite a bit of his stuff over the weekend, and what I did like is there's a lot of him bouncing off and running through tackles, that's my biggest concern when you see a guy like that is he just running through these gaping holes and nobody's touching him like Lake She-Shrunk back in the day? Does he bounce everything outside? Does he run out of bounds? Like those are the things you look for. And Ja'Cory Bill, he doesn't. Like he runs through contact. One of the cons on one of the draft profiles I read about him was that he's involved in too many collisions. And I'm like, that's a con for a running back? That's amazing. That's like, what are you talking about? He gets hit too much? No. So yeah, he's definitely, I'm not all in because I don't know enough about him yet, but he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And he, at the very least, might be a preseason superstar for this team. And maybe something more. Yeah. He might be that guy everybody falls in love with. Marcus
Mason. Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
All right, Eric, give me your final thoughts on the draft and your final draft grade for your instant reaction to the draft, sir.
A+. I'm a big fan. I wish we could have had more picks or maybe moved around a little bit, but the players that were selected, I like. I see the plan. Your team is way more athletic than it was before last weekend started. You draft, he loves the RAS guys. Adam Peters loves the super athletic guys. There was something out where he hasn't drafted anybody with below an 8 RAS score. So he loves athletes. He loves those traits. And I like those too. Especially when you get it, like I said, in those mid and late round picks where, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit. It's better to roll the dice on a superstar athlete than, somebody who's not an athlete. So I'm very excited for the draft and looking forward to camps and all the fun news that's coming up in the next few weeks.
Absolutely. It's going to be exciting. Yeah. Adam Peters is a RAS relative athletic score maniac. It's insane. And I hope it bears out because athleticism doesn't always equal NFL performance. We've seen that before. But, man, these guys are some supreme athletes. I look forward to it. I'm going to give them a B, specifically for the draft. I know we traded picks away for players that we think are going to help, but from a draft perspective, not having picks is tough because then you're forced into decisions with players that maybe you wouldn't be if you were picking with all of your pick allotment. But I'll give it a B. I think there's some really solid things. There are a few projection players like the receiver and the linebacker. We'll have to see how they turn out, but I'm super pumped about the running back. Mike, what's your final thoughts on your grade?
I'll give it an A, man. Thinking about it pick for pick. You get the offensive tackle. So it's set. Like that pick, like I said earlier, that pick may have set the offensive line for years, not just for here and now, but years. The value pick with Amos, the potential and Lane and Madrano, and I really like that running back, man. It has Alfred Morris written all over it to me. I hope everybody's watching the show, but the people that's drafting with me, mute your TV for a second. I'm thinking about taking him in my dynasty league early. I really feel like he could be that good in this offense with a quarterback like Daniels, because you said you worried about him with the space or whatever. If with a quarterback like Daniels, he may actually have that space. So it could work out wonderfully for him. But overall, like I said, I am a customer of Chef Peters. I'm satisfied. A all the way.
Real quick, Adam Peters' favorite rapper growing up, Raz Cass. See what I did there? Raz score, Raz Cass. All right. Time to go, folks. Hey, thanks for listening to Commanders Classified Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed. Hey, we'll do a declassified series on all these draft picks since there were so few of them coming up in the next couple of weeks. So look out for that. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. We're out of here. And we all scored 9s on our RAS scores as well when we played sports too.
Mine was an IQ test, but yeah, got a 9.
I might got a 9 in the size, but that's about it.
See you. Oh, yeah. I didn't end it. I can't work the computer tonight. All right.